Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. AdWords Bootcamp Module 8. And this is all about the ongoing management of your AdWords account. Not, unfortunately, I know some people have asked about getting clients, but not about getting clients. We can talk about that another day. Check out Perry's course with Taylor for that. This is all about the ongoing management of your account. And I've really struggled with this one because, oh, there we go, that'll work better. Here's your mind map. This is what we're going to go through, including this funky new section here, which is the savvy number section there in blue top right, which I've never ever shared publicly before, so you're in for a treat, I hope. The struggle though is this. What I'm trying to do is combine something which is a whole lot of art and a whole lot of science. There's gut feel and intuition that comes into this, as well as a lot of data and Excel pivot tables and all sorts of fun things like that. And I've struggled for the last couple of weeks to work out what to put in here, because you're getting the best of 11 years of experience, plus on top of that my team's experience, which is pretty phenomenal, and the way that we manage accounts here. We've got an hour and a half, so obviously I can't fit absolutely everything that I would like to. I've got 122 slides, so we're going to move fairly fast, and there is going to be a lot in here, but it is ultimately the 80-20 of all of the stuff that we could talk about. We could probably talk about this for an entire day. So I want to give you the best of the best. And in a nutshell, what we're doing is looking for outliers. You know, that's the simple version of what we're doing. We're looking for the high performers, so we can get more of those, tip more money into those, and the low performers, so that we can either reduce the amount of money we spend on those or kill them completely. And the main questions that you're asking yourself as you're going through this, you're looking at what's changed since the last time you looked at the account, last week, last month, whatever that might be, and really trying to dig into the why. That's ultimately what you're trying to get to, because then once you know that, you can fix it. And your biggest friend, as much as we're going to talk about filters and dimensions and segments, and I'll even talk a little bit about pivot tables, but your best friend really is just looking and at images. So eyeballing the charts, and I'll show you a little thing about what we do and what my plans are for that, to turn a tool that we've built internally, and I've spent a bloody fortune building this tool, but how that is changing and how we might offer that publicly if there's enough demand. So this is the bit where you jump up and down. We'll see. We'll get to that in a bit. So first of all, we need to talk about, if we're managing this account, so again, this could be for yourself. You might have multiple clients that you're running for, multiple accounts that you're running for clients, excuse me. First and foremost, you need to know what the goal is. I think every account should have one, oh, we've missed a shot in the slide, one ultimate goal, one ultimate KPI that we measure. Now, there may be other secondary KPIs that are important, but if you have a client that gives you all 7 of these goals as being equally important, well, they're contradictory. You can't have all of these. Pick one. I suggest you start at the top of the list and work down. I think profit is the most important metric. And I'll tell you how we sort of use a calculation, the savvy number calculation, which is kind of a proxy against profit. This is not perfect, but it's a good approximation. You may have a goal such as reduce CPA, but I'll show you in a second why that by itself is not necessarily a great goal. It can be good, especially when you're starting out. It's better than nothing, but it's not the best. Increasing conversions, obviously increasing the volume, but you don't want to do that at the expense of blowing out budgets and increasing costs massively. Sometimes it's not a great goal, but sometimes people will ask you to maintain position. We must be in the top 2 ads. That's really ego bidding. That's not a good goal. But if the CPA is acceptable in those top 2 positions, then it might make sense to say, right, we need to be in those top 2 positions because we know the CPA is profitable. We have to be up there because we know there's 10 times, 15 times more traffic in those top spots. More clicks, more impressions, obviously not great goals, and hitting budgets. If you have got a limited budget, then that's obviously going to be an important one, particularly for your clients. But it is a contradictory goal to have, say, hit budget and maximize profit, obviously, or even hit budget and increase conversions. Those two may fight against each other. And part of the struggle with this was what to include from a ongoing management point of view and what to include from a taking over a new account. So this is my account audit cheat sheet. So I've managed to get everything onto one page. If you go to that short URL, and again I will put the URLs for all of these into the Google Plus community after this webinar. So remind me to do that. That's going to give you the list of questions that I ask myself when I'm looking at a new account, all of the different areas of the account that I want to look at, and the sort of questions I want to ask. It's very, very similar to what we're talking about today, which might be a regular deep dive into an account. So if you're running a client account, you might be doing something like we're doing today every couple of weeks, maybe every month, maybe every week, and really digging in deep. And then there's a bunch of other tasks that you're going to do on a more regular basis, which leads me to the calendar. This is just a sample. It may be entirely different for you, but what I'd love you to do is to put together your own calendar. You may have some quarterly stuff in there as well, such as reviewing the whole website or reviewing the strategy with the client. That doesn't need to happen on as often a basis. There are some things that you might want to be doing daily, although scripts, which we'll talk about towards the end of today, scripts can probably do a lot of that fiddly, tedious, repetitive work for you these days. So we're going to talk about scripts, and I'll give you some resources to find out some more information about that. There's going to be a bunch of stuff that you do weekly. So as we go through today, all of the different things that I'm going to suggest, I'll give you a rough guide with some of those as to where that might fit on your calendar. But the best action step that you can take at the end of this is to review all the things that we talk about, jot them down, whatever you're going to do today, and then figure out for you what makes the most sense of when to do those tasks, and then you stick to it. So it's the same in social. You have an editorial calendar of when you're going to blog or when you're going to post. Having a calendar, having a schedule of what you're going to do when, will keep you out of the weeds and make sure that you stay focused on the high level stuff and you don't get attached to your inbox, which is someone else's to-do list. So this is the acronym we're going to follow, my CEO method. There's three main things that we're going to be doing when we manage an account. There's some ongoing checks. There's some expansion stuff. I'll talk very, very briefly about that. And some of the things that you can do to grow the account. The vast majority of it, probably 80%, is the optimization. So that's the main focus for today. What are all the things you can do to get those numbers heading back in the right direction? Because I'm guessing, if you're watching this, that optimization is far more important to you than expansion. Expansion is getting more once everything's profitable. Optimization is getting it profitable. And you're probably taking a course like this because you want it to be more profitable. So that's where the focus is today. But we'll start with a quick quiz, because I like these things. Which of these is better? I think I've shared this before earlier in the course, but I'll give you a second to look at that while I drink a water. Which is better, 50 leads at $30 or 100 leads at $40? Because this is an exact case study that we had with a client recently. And it doesn't matter if this is per day, per week, or per month. And the answer is that you don't know, because it depends where the break-even point is. It depends at which point these leads become profitable. If the break-even point, so think of the break-even point, basically this is the maximum allowable CPA, or something else that we'll occasionally call that. This is the point where I make $0. If it costs me 42 bucks a lead, then I make nothing. If it costs me 43, I'm starting to lose money every time I run an ad. But if I'm getting them for 40, I make a little bit. So if the break-even's 42, 42 minus 30, break-even minus CPA, that's 12 bucks. 12 bucks of wiggle room there, times the 50 leads is 600 bucks. If I'm only getting $2 a time, times 100 is 200. So clearly, the 50 at $30 would be better. But, and this was the case with this client, their break-even was $100. Well, now the equation's a little different. Because there's so much wiggle room there, because the difference between my break-even, 100, minus the $30, that first CPA, I've got 70 lots of 50, which is $3.5 grand, Or if I'm allowed, because I know I've got lots of wiggle room, if I'm allowed to bump up that CPA to $40, which on the face of it, you might be freaking out about, going, well, hang on, you've just increased my CPA 33%. This is not a good win. But now I've doubled your profit. And that is why, for me, profit is the most important metric. That's what we measure on the P&L. The clue's in the question: profit and loss. That's how we run our businesses. That has to be the focus. Quality score, lovely, guiding metric. Impression share, awesome, tells us a bit about the account. But ultimately, profit is what we build our businesses on. And so knowing the break even, probably at a campaign level to start. So we have campaign level metrics that we look at. A break even for different product groups might be different for different areas of the business. If you can start though by just having a break even as an average across the whole account, that's wonderful. And then what we do is we roll all of that up from a ad group level through campaign level all the way up, so we have one overarching number which we call our savvy number. So there's the formula for it. You can copy that, I don't mind. Just give credit to savvy number. But break even minus CPA times the number of conversions. And then what I do in our tool, in our dashboard tool that we've built, is I track that savvy number. What you're looking at here is the savvy number, then 7D and 28D, that's the 7-day trend and the 28-day trend. So I can see how my savvy number is performing over the last 7 days, over the last 28 days, and then I plot, and there's a bit more funky math goes into this, but this is the sort of the slightly simplified version, and then I plot that, again, using some other funky stuff, just to smooth that out a little bit, so I can see the trend of this account. And you can see there that bottom one, it's got a lot worse. It's starting to get better again. The 7-day trend is okay, but it's way, way worse than it was 28 days ago. So serious investigation needed there. And again, to calculate that, you need to know the break-even. So we have a place where we can plug that break-even in. And then I can dig into any of those, and then I can see the numbers underlying that. Now, if you glance at this may look a little confusing at first, but again, eyeball the charts. I think it's so much easier to see what's going on by looking at that line of spark lines there. Sorry, the column of spark lines. You can see impressions, second one down. That's clearly part of the problem we've got going on here. Impressions have tanked massively. I think that's a 60-day chart. So impressions have tanked massively from about where they were a month ago, but click-through rate is on the rise. Okay, so that gives me some interesting stuff to then go investigate. Everything else looks reasonably flat, and down the bottom here I can see conversions are going up nicely again. Columns over on the left, I've got the actual number, the 7-day trend, the 28-day trend. But those 9 numbers make up everything else. So by rolling all of this stuff up, I can then have one number by which I judge each account. And this next one, I apologize now, is a little confusing, but I then want to be able to see, so this is nice, but this is a roll-up of the whole account. I then want to be able to see, well, what's actually happening? Where are the campaigns that matter? And then I can look at something like this, which, yeah, it looks a bit confusing, but now I can blow up the account and see at a campaign level those 9 metrics all charted with moving averages, and the color, not entirely sure it's working perfectly on all of those, but the color of the line overlaid on that spark is the direction it's heading in. So green's good, red's bad, and blue's heading sideways. Well, that's what it's meant to be anyway. There's some work needed there. I'm going to move on from that. I'm just going to show you that because it might give you some ideas as to what you create as the early warning system. And instead I want to talk to this, because this is the bit I've never shared before. This is part of the mind map, which is already loaded into the members area. And I just want to talk through this because I think this will really help you understand from a management point of view how to think about the account. Well, where should I do it? I'll do it here. I think because we've been talking about this a lot in the office this week about what we do and really trying to deeply understand what we do so that I can teach it better. because it's intuitive now. We have lots of systems, we have our methods of doing stuff, but it's very intuitive. What I'm trying to do here is to give you a way of thinking about the account, because I'm pretty sure this is what we do intuitively, and we look at all of this really without breaking it apart necessarily in our heads to understand where all of the opportunities lie. And then what we're doing is really prioritizing those based on two things: expected ease of implementation. Again, so that's the art part, right? That's the bit that you get from experience. You don't know the first time you do this how easy doing this or that is going to be, but also expected business impact. And what I mean by that is what's going to move the needle, again, on profit. Profit is ultimately the main thing I'm interested in. So there's always 107 things that you could do in an AdWords account. I can't give you, for your account, the perfect list of the order of those 107 things. What you're doing is trying to figure out, okay, well, we'll get into it when we get into some of the metrics like impression share. What's the number? Therefore, what do I think I'm able to get that number to in the next week or in the next 4 weeks? What's that going to mean for the business? What's that going to do to my profit if I can get that from 20% to 30%? If I can get that number from $1.50 to $1.30, what's that going to mean? And you're trying to factor in all of these different things that you can do and then prioritize those so that you know which order to work through those. And that's my goal with this crazy mind map. It's a decision tree, really. So start on the left-hand side. The goal is profit. And we're going to roll up all of this into one savvy number so that we can track our savvy number for the account, and that gives us an early warning system as to something going wrong. How do you increase profit? Well, you increase conversions or you decrease CPA. So this is you're following along from the left going to the right. Conversions up, lower CPA, or increase the break-even, which you do. So I'll start at the bottom. How could you increase the break-even point? How could you move it from $42 to $100? Well, if you can increase the lifetime value of each customer, increase the profit that each customer brings in, then you're going to increase that break-even. If each customer makes you $1,000 over time versus $100, then you can afford to pay much more for your traffic, which means you can buy a lot more traffic in a lot more places. You can afford to buy keywords that other people aren't bidding on. You can afford to do different stuff on display that other people can't afford to do. And if you want more on that, then go read Jay Abraham, Geometric Growth. There are only 3 ways to grow a business. Get them to spend more, get them to spend more often, increase your margins. It's pretty much it. So I'll follow along the top one. How do we increase conversions? Well, what makes up conversions? Well, it's clicks and conversion rate. They're the 2 metrics that you multiply together to get to conversions. So if you want to increase conversions, you need to increase the number of clicks, or you need to increase the conversion rate. Conversion rate is the easy one at the bottom, so we'll do that first. That's not something that you do inside your AdWords account. So you can choose which destination URL to push that traffic to. Maybe you're pushing traffic to 3 different pages on your site and you find out that one of them converts really, really well. Well, then you can test changing the destination URL of some other ads to see if that increases conversion rate. But ultimately, it's about the landing page that you're sending that traffic to, doing conversion rate optimization there, maybe changing the offer, particularly if you're giving something away. Never assume that the one offer that you have is the right offer. But really, upping conversion rate is something that happens outside the account. So let's go back up to clicks. What are clicks made up of? Well, they're made up out of impressions and click-through rate. So if I want to increase the number of clicks, I either need to increase my impressions or I need to increase click-through rate. So let's go click-through rate first. How do I change click-through rate? Well, obviously ad copy is the main one. I test. Remember Dave Bullock's thing back in module 3. First test forests, then test trees, then test branches, then test leaves. So test the big stuff first. Try and make a big impact. Try and get a 2x, 4x, 6x increase in click-through rate. Obviously, with an eye to conversion. Again, we don't want ads that get lots of clicks and that don't convert, but click-through rate is, we know, an important part of quality score, module 5. So we need to play the game that Google wants to play, at least in part. How else can I boost click-through rate? Well, particularly if you're showing your ads, if your average position is around about 3.x or 4.x, 3.7 or 4.2, somewhere around there, what it probably means is your ads are showing at the top of the right-hand side a lot, but not over on the top positions. I'll talk about top versus other report in a little bit and how you can discover that. But if your ads are showing there a lot, then a small increase in position can get you a decent boost in click-through rate. Obviously, negatives, we've talked about those quite a lot. One of the best ways when we take over a new account to get a quick increase in click-through rate is to review the search query report, is to have a look through our in-house lists of potential negative keywords for that particular vertical and add more negative keywords to the account. And having a look at your geography report in dimensions, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and seeing if there are any really, really bad areas where you're showing, because there's just bad geographies where you're showing ads that have really low click-through rates. If we get rid of those geographies, if we stop showing ads there, then we can get a nice boost. So it's almost like it's negatives for location, really, excluding geographies. All right, let's come back up to impressions. There's only 3 ways to increase impressions. We've talked about impression share, and we've talked about the fact that there are impression share should be 100%, your share of all of the available impressions for the keywords in that campaign, for all the settings that you have. So what's your impression share? If it's not 100%, there's 2 reasons that you lose impressions. You lose them because of ad rank, and you lose them because of budget. Budget's the easy one to fix, you just increase your budget. Assuming that things are profitable, the easiest way possible to increase impressions, increase clicks, increase conversions, all the way back to profit is just to up the budget. If you're losing impressions because of ad rank, well, then you need to work on the 3 things that make up ad rank. Quality, which I'm going to cover a little bit more at the bottom of the screen, bid, and extensions. If quality is okay, well, if quality isn't okay, fix quality first. If quality is okay, then the short-term solution to increasing rank, decreasing lost impression shares due to rank, because that's what I've got on the chart, the decreased lost rank, the short-term fix is to up the bid a little bit. And obviously checking and adding all of the extensions known to man. And the third way to up impressions is to expand the account. We can change the targeting, we can increase the schedule, so maybe ads are not showing 24/7, or of course we can add more keywords. We can go back, revisit our keyword research, and maybe add some more keywords. But again, remember the bullseye, remember the archery target. We want those bullseye keywords first, and then we want to work out grudgingly 1 concentric circle at a time, adding each new bucket of keywords slowly, making sure that we get them profitable first. You're not adding 50,000, 100,000 keywords to the account and hoping that some of them are going to be profitable. That's going to do you more harm than good. You can change targeting, so we could have more campaigns. We could add more locations, so the opposite of what we did when we were removing geographies that weren't working. We could go test showing ads in more locations and expand the account that way. More networks, so by that I mean you could add in search partners if that's been turned off to date. You could add in some Google display stuff that we talked about last module 7. And then obviously within display, if you're running a little bit of display so far, maybe you're only running remarketing, so you could test in market or display select or one of the other many targeting options there. And obviously you could have different settings in your account, such as ad serving. You could change from standard to accelerated. So there's a bunch of things you could do to get more, and that's the expanding bit. So that's the top part. Now let's come down to the bottom part. We said to increase profit, we can up conversions, increase the break-even point, or decrease CPA. And I've just shown you that that is not always the best thing to do. What we did in that previous case, obviously, was massively increase impressions. And in that instance, we did it by bidding more. So all the way up to the top right, we bid more, which increased the impressions. It reduced the lost amount due to rank, increased the impressions, which got us a lot more clicks. At the same conversion rate, increased the conversions. We paid a little bit more for them, but the profit almost doubled. So the other option down here, we can decrease CPA. Well, what goes into CPA? What's the cost per action, the cost per lead? Well, it's tied to the conversion rate and how much we're paying for each click. Well, conversion rate is covered just above it there. That's the stuff that happens off the site. So what goes into CPC? Oh, I should have a little down arrow there instead of a D. To decrease the CPC, obviously I can decrease my bid, or again, I can up my quality score. What goes into quality? We know that. We did that in Module 5. We can increase the click-through rate. We've covered how to do that. We can increase the ad relevance, which pretty much is increasing click-through rate, and we can increase LPQ, landing page quality scores. Again, stuff that happens off-site, checklist for that in Module 5. So hopefully, I'm not seeing tons of questions, although I won't be able to see questions once I get one more in. I won't be able to get them off the screen. Throw questions into the question box or the chat pad, and I may be able to get to those, but probably at the end of the presentation, because I probably won't be able to get into those while Keynote's running. That hopefully is the not totally confusing way of how to think about how do I fix this account. Follow the decision tree down. Can't do that, no, can't do that. Oh, I could do I could do this. Okay, and you might end up with 3 or 4 of these things circled. You might end up with a lot more. And then what we're going to try and do is figure out what's the priority for those. How easy is it to get it done, and what sort of impact do we think it's going to make? So let's walk through how we look at accounts and give you a whole bunch of different things that you can then go do. So CEO, checks, expansion, and optimization. So checks first. I always start by looking at the date range of the account. So this is more if I'm looking at an account that I haven't looked at in a while, so maybe more related to the audit. If I'm looking at the account on a regular basis, this isn't as important, but it's still good to eyeball the charts just to make sure there isn't anything going wrong. We talked about how wonderful web devs are and how they keep deleting our conversion code, or they keep changing thank you page URLs. If you haven't been in the account for a couple of weeks, always start by checking dates and conversions and making sure that nothing's broken. And really what we're doing here is just making sure that this has been consistent over time. So if I was doing an audit, I would, on that top chart there, I would either go after that date because it looks like something major happened there in terms of conversion rate. There was a big jump there. Or I'd audit the period leading up to that point. And in that bottom chart there, as I've said on the screen, find out what happened. I mean, this obviously something major happened there. Most likely, because the conversion rate heads up towards 100%, most likely that's incorrect code. But I wouldn't want to include that little chunk of time in the overall picture that I'm looking at, because it's just going to be completely misleading. So again, I would start after that, when whatever problem that was got fixed. So just eyeballing, it doesn't really matter the metric, but you might want to look at cost or impressions, conversion rate, number of conversions, eyeball those charts and just make sure that they're relatively consistent over time. And then with conversions, these are the sort of questions that you're asking yourself. Has the tracking changed? Is anything broken? And if you're reliant on analytics numbers, then obviously don't look at yesterday's data, because that's not really going to tell you much. There's generally a lag. They do seem to be working on that and improving that lag. I think they've got it down to around about 24 hours now versus the, before they said 2 days, but we've certainly seen accounts where that's about a 3 or 4 day lag. And obviously we can't then go into that account and look at what happened yesterday or even the day before yesterday, because it's not going to give us a true picture of what's going on. So bear that in mind if you're using analytics goals imported into AdWords. And then eyeballing your campaign settings. So question obviously is, what campaign settings are being used? Again, if you're in this, if it's your account, if no one else is managing this with you, if you haven't got a team, if it's your own business, then you can be fairly certain that nothing's changed here. So this might be, if it's your account, it might be something that you do quarterly, just to make sure you haven't missed anything, just to make sure that nothing's been changed accidentally. if there are many of you managing it, then this is something that you're probably going to do, probably not weekly. This is probably more of one of those sort of fortnightly to monthly things. Really handy way to do this. If you come into your campaign settings, you can change the columns that are shown in campaign settings. So you then add all columns, and then you get a screen like this. So this is at an account level showing all of the different campaigns, and I can add all of these columns. So I can see at a glance what's going on in all columns. Really, really handy, I think this is. You can do a very similar thing too in AdWords Editor. And then I can immediately see the bid strategy that I've got on here, delivery method, is it standard or accelerated? Have I got ads on rotate indefinitely, or are they optimizing for clicks or something like that that I don't want? I can see which networks we're on, languages, etc. So really handy to be able to do that and just see that at a glance. Now for bonus points, you can also go have a look at, are there any bidding strategies being used? Again, if this is your account, you'll probably be more aware of that, so not something that you check as often, but under shared library and bid strategies. And also along the same lines, but under bulk operations, so bottom left-hand corner of the account, are auto rules or scripts being used. Again, I'm going to talk about scripts towards the end of this module. Just a couple of slides on the expansion side, because expansion is all about more, and we've talked about this on our initial mind map, but again, just for the sake of completion, how do we get more? Well, the obvious one is we bid more, assuming that we have room in the budget to bid more, and assuming that it's profitable to do so. Increasing budgets, I said before, was the single easiest way to get more, again, assuming that what you already have is profitable. You can increase the scheduling if you're not running 24/7 already. You can increase that schedule, or bid modify that schedule, so you bid more just in the areas of the day where it's most profitable to do so. You can add more devices. These days, really the only option we have there is to add mobile into the mix and or bid higher for mobile if you're getting profitable conversions from mobile. You can add more placements or more targeting methods to your display. You can add more keywords, add more locations, add other networks, which is basically search partners. So we've covered that. Add more, but that's not going to be the focus for today. The focus of today is how do we optimize? How do we get this thing more profitable first? And obviously we want to follow the sort of chain down, so we want to start at the top and look at the campaign level first. First thing I want to understand is, what's the 80-20 of all of my campaigns? Where do I spend my time? What's the most important? And I'll typically sort my campaigns by cost when I'm doing that. So you can see here that one of these campaigns is pretty much half the entire account, and then most of the rest is the next 3 campaigns down. So if I've only got half an hour to spend today, then I'm only going to look at that top campaign. I'm not going to try and do everything across all campaigns, because that's not going to get me a decent win. But if I've got a little bit longer, maybe I've got an hour, hour and a half, and then I'm going to look at those next 3 down. And obviously if I've only got half an hour, then I need to make a note to come back around and work on this account again soon, because I've got some other big campaigns here that obviously need some work. They still need looking at, but I've just got to prioritize my resources. So I'm going to sort by cost first and foremost. And what I'm really asking myself as I go through this is, what's the potential? So with all of these potential optimizations that we're looking at, what do I think I can get the number to? And what does that mean, business impact? What does that mean to profit? What does that mean to total conversions if I get that number, if I get halfway to that number? That's what's going to help me organize my time and do this stuff in the right order. So I'm usually looking at around about 30-day data for that. I don't want to look back a year or two to think about what the potential is, because numbers like impression share are going to be reasonably meaningless over a long period of time, because a lot can change in that time. So generally around about 30 days. There are some things that you're going to want to look at a bit more data for, maybe a 90-day, and I'll talk about that when we get to those things. And what are the constraints or priorities of your campaign? So we've got a client at the moment, probably about 15 campaigns in their account. One campaign isn't allowed to spend more than $4,000 a month, A different campaign must spend a minimum of $1,000 a month. Well, there's probably another couple of minimums in there as well. And then there's about 3 different types of campaigns. So we might have 10 campaigns of one type, 1 or 2 of another type, and they have different break-evens. So in this case, we've got 3 different break-even levels. So I like to draw just a little table. I don't have a screenshot of this, but a little table of all of those campaigns, what the priority number for that campaign is. So obviously my brand campaign is typically priority 1. The one that's making the most profit, or depending on some sort of internal constraint in the business, might be priority 2, 3, 4. I think I mentioned a different client earlier in the boot camp. They sell doors and windows and shutters. Doors is their mainstay. That's the main thing in the business. So that's priority 1. Until such point as they get really busy on the factory floor, they can't keep up, they're getting flooded with orders, then that might drop down to position 2 or 3. At which point then we know from the table that Windows is now high priority, and that's where all of our effort and where all of the attention needs to go to increase that one. So that's just, and you can do that if you want. You could do that using a label. You could have priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, or you could just have a notepad or something as simple as a whiteboard. They're always good too. And then with my campaigns, like I said on the decision tree before, the 2 things I'm looking at there are what's the main constraint, particularly around getting this thing growing. So what's holding it back? And that's usually going to be one of 2 things, and that's looking at your lost impression share. So you can see the second row down there, it's limited by budget, but my impression share lost to your budget is 69%. So if I want more, and it looks like the CPA from that one is particularly good, if you cast your eye down the cost per converted click column, or the one sort of roughly in the middle, $59.72, running my eye up and down that column, that's the second cheapest campaign, but I'm only showing ads 17.4% of the time. Well, there's a bloody easy fix. Spend more money on that campaign. Whether that means upping the overall budget or pulling money from other campaigns, again, assuming that there are no other constraints that have been enforced on you there by the client. You know, this campaign cannot spend more than $3,500 this month, say, because you obviously need to bear that in mind. And this goes back to the very, very first thing about what's the goal. Ideally, the goal we want, the brief we want from a client is maximize profit. Over to you guys how you do it. And the more constraints they had in the mix, the more complicated that gets. But there's an easy win. Second line on that screen, we just up the budget. So search impression share is 17%, lost impression share due to budget 69%. Google is basically saying there's round about 4 times the additional traffic if you just increase the budget. So instead of spending $3.5 grand, you could have spent around about an extra 14 grand. You could have got around about an extra 200 converted clicks, assuming all other things stay equal. They won't, obviously, but roughly they will. The one I've highlighted there in red, well, this one also has lost impression share due to budget. I've got 35% impression share, but my lost impressions due to budget are about 32%. So in other words, there's about the same amount of traffic again if you want it. Oh, but hang on a minute, this has got a CPA of $152. No thanks, I don't want that. I'm not going to increase those budgets anymore. I'm going to leave that on $10 a day. So that's where I start, and I use these impression share columns a lot. What's the potential, just at a high level, at a campaign level, what's the potential of the account? If there's lost impressions due to budget, can I increase budget? If there's lost impressions due to rank, then I need to dig in and say, is it quality or bid? We talked about in Module 5 how to find out the quality scores. If your quality, and how to judge that quality score. Basically a 7 or higher is pretty decent. 5 or 6, not too bad, but probably you could probably bump that up a little bit, but it's going to take some work. So now I've got to start to prioritize, where do I spend that time? If it is high quality or high-ish quality, then the quick fix to fix the rank problem is going to be to up my bids. Do I have room in the profitability to do that? If I'm running at $40 and my break-even's 42, well then no, I probably can't afford to increase my bid, so then I need to look elsewhere on my decision tree for other things that I can go do. So another place to assess potential, and I use this one a lot, is the top versus other segment, which I'll show you exactly how to find in a minute if you're not familiar with it. But what I'm looking at here is how do my Google top impressions, so I'm not really worried about search partners at this point because I can't do anything about search partners. So I'm really just looking at how do my impressions compare between those Google top spots and the Google other spots, in other words, the right-hand side of Google. And again, what's the potential? So we go to our segment drop-down and find top versus other underneath that. Now if we see something like this, so my Google search top, so over on the left, what I'm looking at here, I've got 72,000 impressions showing in the top spots, and when they show up there I get a 13% click-through rate, and I've got around about 37,000 showing on the right-hand side. Obviously a much lower click-through rate on the right-hand side, and that's about what you're normally going to see. You're going to see this around about 10 to 15 times the difference. It's amazingly consistent over all industries. The numbers might change. It might be 0.5% compared to 5. It might be 2% compared to 20, but it's usually going to be around about 10 to 15. So go find out for you, at least for your top campaign, all campaigns, campaign tab, segment top versus other, how do your impressions for Google top and Google other compare? Something like this, sort of roughly 65% top, 35% other, there's not a lot more to be had. There's not a huge increase that we can do here. We can't, anything over, because I know you want a number, I generally want to see that, assuming it's profitable to be in the top spots, assuming that we're not ego bidding and chasing those top spots, then I'm pretty happy with anything over about 70% in the top. Even 50-50 in some markets, 50-50 might be okay. Anything over 80% Google top, I'm pretty happy with. If I see something like this though, where I'm seeing 36,000 impressions at the top, but 135,000 over on the right-hand side, then I know there's huge potential here, because if I can move, let's keep the numbers really easy. If I can move 36,000 of the 135,000 from the side up to the top, so what's that? Roughly about a quarter. So I've got 36,000 at the top, and I want to move about a quarter of those ones from the right-hand side up into the top spots. I would effectively double that top line. Yeah, I've gone from 36,000, I've added another 36,000. Let's assume click-through rate stays the same at 16%. So I'm going to add another 5,800 clicks. And I haven't showed the conversion columns here, but assuming I pay about the same for those, and assuming that the conversion rate stays the same, I double whatever the conversion number is off to the right-hand side, which we can't see. Yes, you're going to spend another $3,500 to get those clicks, but if this is profitable to do so, well, then you're making money every time you invest that 35. It's not spending, it's investing. So if I see something like this, where it's 20% top, 80% other, then I know there's a lot of potential to be had there just by bumping a few. You're never going to get 100% Google top, but if you can bump some of these other impressions up to the top, it's going to make a big difference in the volume of the campaign, the number of clicks, and therefore the number of impressions. Next thing to look at, devices. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. I'll see if I can just quickly catch up on some questions here. Thanks for all the questions that are coming in. Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris. Very kind words. Lovely. And Ken, I'll get to your question at the end because I don't quite understand it. So, devices. If we segment by device, and again, start just at the campaign level, get familiar with that segment drop down, some really cool stuff under here, segment by device, and then I can see a breakout of all of my numbers, computers, mobile, and tablet. So first thing I want to look at is which campaigns have got mobile turned on, and then assuming that they have got mobile turned on, which is the case here, and I've got a CPA of $55 versus 78. Not a lot you can do from a tablet point of view. There's a couple of sneaky tricks, but really tablet and computers are tied together, and there's not really much you can do other than one very sneaky trick. I'll tell you about it on the Google Plus community one time. If I'm seeing this, remember we worked out the bid modifier formula when we talked about bid mods in module 4 when we had the Nevada, Colorado example. Use the same formula here and decrease your bid on mobile. So you don't want to turn mobile off. You're getting traffic. It's just not as profitable. So therefore we just want to bid a bit less. And so we can change our bid modifier in our campaign settings and bid mobile down, let's say 20%. So really the question you're asking yourself here is, any quick wins? Can I turn mobile off? Can I bid up or bid down and use that bid modifier appropriately? Kind of a similar thing with networks, and we'll talk about display a bit later. For now we're just going to talk about search partners. So again, we come into segment, network with search partners. Look at that data. It looks exactly the same as the previous screen, so I haven't got another screenshot, but instead of computers, mobile, tablet, you're going to see Google search, search partners, and display. Obviously, the display, you want to see zeros. You don't want to have any display traffic mixed in with your search traffic. And for all of your display campaigns, you should be seeing zeros for search and search partners. But review this occasionally. Do I have search partners on? Because I think I did say right at the beginning, first couple of campaigns you set up, turn partners off at the start. It really muddies the water, messes up your data because all your data are averages, and you can't do anything about it anyway. You can't control it. You can't show on some partner sites and not others. You can't bid differently for partners. So turn it off at the beginning. Once you've got things running well, you've got things profitable, and you're at the, oh, how do I expand stage? Well, then you can think about turning partners on and testing it and seeing what happens. If you're taking over an account, one of the first things I'll do is turn that segment on, have a little look, and often I'll find partners is greatly more expensive CPA, and therefore quick win. I can turn partners off. Geography report. So one of the many under Dimensions. Dimensions tab is your friend. Get familiar with it because you're going to be using it a lot in the ongoing management of your accounts. So you change that view day and you change look for that geographic one further down the list. And once you add this, you may need to change the columns around here. You can see here I've got a column for country territory over on the left. The first time you turn this on, you've probably got a bunch of extra columns there. Region, town, city, most something location, can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but go into the column drop down there at the top of the screen, tidy up those columns, start at the high level. So start just by looking across the country level. So you can see here, top line Australia, third line New Zealand, both very good CPAs, but then I've got a whole bunch here that are quite expensive. UK, twice as expensive as New Zealand. Ireland, even more expensive. Norway and Greece, $700. Now, okay, it's only one conversion, so turning Greece off isn't going to save me a lot of money. You know, what am I spending here? This looks to be about 50 grand all up, but still, you know, if I can save 1% of my budget and spend that $700 getting 10 additional sales in Australia instead of 1 in Greece, well, then that's obviously going to be good for the account. So I can then choose to change my bids and use bid modifiers on these countries, or obviously I can just exclude the entire country. And then if you want to dig deeper, then you can add region column to that previous screen and dig in at a state or territory or county level, depending on where you live, and get more detail and do the same thing, just the next layer down. And if you've got an absolute boatload of data, you can do that at the city level, but most of the time you're probably going to have to settle for region. Time, obviously always look at time, again under dimensions, and under that time drop down there's two there that we'll use most of the time, and that's the day of week and hour of day. If you use Optimizer, which is a tool I'll talk about towards the end, they use hour of week, so they kind of try and combine these two and divide the week up into 4-hour slices. It's just a slightly different way of doing this. But day of week, an hour of day. Day of week, so something like this, where I've got the majority of the week, Tuesday through Friday, is working pretty well, between 69 and 78 CPA, and then I've got some more expensive days. Exactly the same as we did before. Use bid modifiers to bid those expensive days down. You don't kill them straight away. Bid them down, can't get it to work, bid them down a bit more. Yep, now it's profitable, great. Can't get it to work, bid it down, and you end up killing it. And hour of day. Trick with hour of day, remember to sort by the hour of day column. It won't be sorted by that the first time you look at this report, but it's important to sort it by that, not by cost or CPA or anything else. It won't make any sense at all until you sort by hour of day, but then I can see at a glance, just by looking at that CPA column, this account is expensive to run in the early hours of the morning and late in the evening. So again, I'm going to use bid modifiers. Now this is an area where I might end up killing these times quickly. If I've got a very limited budget, then I'm just going to turn my ads off during these worst performing times, and I'm going to push that budget into my best performing days. If there's potential to increase impressions, if I've got, say, lost impressions due to budget, then obviously I want to spend more money in the middle of the day. And rather than just decreasing the bids slowly using bid modifiers on these non-performing times, then I may just turn ads off on those non-performing times, tip all my money into the best performing times a day until such point where I then start to think about, yep, this is all profitable. Remember our decision tree right at the beginning. I've got this profitable. How do I do more? Well, then I can revisit my schedule and I can start to turn the other hours of the day back on, obviously on a lower bid, but I can start to turn those back on and start to test those. First and foremost, I want to get the thing profitable. So once I've done all of that at the campaign level, then I can dig in and look at an ad group level. First thing I'm asking myself, do any of them need to be removed? And we're going to use filters to do this. So I haven't shown filters before, that's on the next screen. There's two that you're mainly going to focus on, high spend and zero conversions, and then high spend and high CPA, because obviously as soon as you've got a conversion, then you've got a CPA number. Until you get that first conversion, then there's nothing in the CPA column. So there's two different filters that you want to do. So filters, dead easy, but I find a lot of people don't use them. So again, I'm in the ad group tab. Now, again, the tree view on the left-hand side of the screen. You can do this across the entire account. So if you've got all online campaigns highlighted, you can go into the ad groups tab and see all of the ad groups for the entire campaign. If over on the left-hand side, the tree view of your interface, you've got one campaign selected, then obviously you're going to see all of the ad groups within that campaign. If you only have one ad group selected over on the left, you're only going to see one ad group, and that's not going to be particularly useful for this. So you can do this across the entire account or for one campaign at a time. This is where it's going to be most useful. Click on filter, and then you can see there is a massive number of things that I can filter by. I can filter by name, I can filter by status, all sorts of metrics in there. The main one that you're probably going to use is performance. So it's not this in the column chooser, performance is usually right towards the top. In the filter, it's buried a little bit, so that's why I've highlighted on the screenshot where to find it. So you find that cost drop down, change that to performance, and then change that to whatever it is that you need. It might be cost, it might be impressions, and then you build a filter. So you can keep adding rules to this if you want. So I've said here, so high cost in this particular case was cost greater than $100 and converted clicks equals 0. And then I can save that filter. I can give it a name, put a little tick in save filter and hit apply, and that then shows me obviously the subset of ad groups that match that filter. I can then come back around, I can change my filter. Obviously the other one we wanted high cost and high CPA, so where am I spending money and it's losing me money consistently. So I might do something like cost greater than 100 and I change that converted clicks drop down to maybe that's CPA, cost per converted click, greater than whatever is a high number for you. I generally wouldn't, so if your sort of target is, let's say, $20, then I'm going to say find me everything that's $40 and higher. If you want to be even more aggressive, you might say find me everything that's $30 and higher. But you're probably not going to put a filter in there that's find me everything that's just over my $20, because that's going to get you loads and loads of ad groups. That's not going to be particularly useful. So where you set the line is up to you. Again, this is the art part. It's not all science. That's the subjective measure depending on your risk, depending on how aggressively you want to manage the account. I can't invent that number for you. That's up to you. So that's the ad group filter. And then once we've had a look at ad groups, we'll dig into keywords. Now, if you're using ad group level bidding, then some of the stuff I'm about to show you here, you can do at the ad group level. We don't use ad group level bidding. We use keyword level bidding because it gives us more control, a more granular level of control over the account. If you have an ad group level bid and a keyword level bid, the keyword level bid overrides the ad group bid. So we always use keyword bids, and that's why the decisions around bidding are all in this section and not in the ad group section, which is why there's very little in the ad group section, because there's not a whole lot you can do at an ad group level. You can pretty much kill those expensive ones, and that's it. I'm not going to reduce bids of ad groups because it's meaningless, because I use keyword bids, just to clear that up. And again, 80-20 of the 80-20 rule. You will probably find, when you look at all of the keywords across your account and sort by cost, that there are very, very few keywords that drive all of the conversions. So what's the top? Depending on how much time you have available, depending on how big the account is, what's the top 1%, 2%, maybe 5%? It's rare that we'll look at more than the top 20% for the most part. There are other checks. We'll come back and look at everything every now and again, but on a weekly, fortnightly basis, what are my top keywords? And then two different things, two lots of outliers here. So the bad stuff, I use filters just like we did before. Find the high spend and 0 conversions. Find the high spend and the high CPA. Remember, you have to do those twice, because until you've got a conversion, it won't show up in the high CPA column. And then my outliers on the low side, like what's the good stuff that I actually want to bid up? So stuff with low impression numbers, that I want to bid that up just to start getting impressions, because until I'm getting impressions, I don't really know how to manage this thing. So bid those things up. You may find that when you bid it up, you finally start getting impressions, you finally start getting a few clicks, and then eventually it falls into the bucket that we just looked at, which is the high spend 0 conversions, in which case you're going to start to bid it back down again. So you start to play yo-yos with it, and it goes up and it goes down. But until you have impressions, you can't make any other determination. So if you've got low impression keywords there, bid them up, get them to start showing, and then you can judge accordingly. Below first page bid is another one you may want to do. You know how you get that warning next to all of your keywords? This is below the first page bid. You will find, this varies from account to account, but you will find that you do get impressions for those below first page bid keywords. Even though it's saying, hey, you're not bidding enough, you'll find that you still do show occasionally. But just know that you will get more impressions if you raise bids up to that suggestion. Do check qualities with that though, because if you've got low qualities and you chase Google's suggestions, it will just keep suggesting more and more and more money, and then you'll end up like the guy I saw spending $25 a click in a market where he should have been spending $1 a click. So don't chase those suggestions, but do use them as a guiding metric and say, okay, Google keeps thinking I'm below first page, do I want to raise my bids or not? And obviously this should go without saying, but raise the bids for your converting keywords. So once you've got at least 2, so ignore the ones. 1 conversion is a fluke, particularly that 1 impression, 1 click, 1 conversion keywords. We call them 111s. A highly original name, I know. We could probably work up a better name for that one day. But those are flukes. You can't optimize something that's had 1 impression, 1 click, 1 conversion. So I will want to wait until I get at least 2 conversions and preferably 3 conversions, ideally at a search query level. So remember, search queries that live behind keywords, but if you do that at a keyword level, you won't go too far wrong. A keyword that's got 2, preferably 3 conversions, bid that up. Bidding that up means you're going to get more and more of something that's already profitable, which is obviously a good thing. And then a couple of other things you can do at the keyword level. I'm not going to explain just because of lack of time and because there's a boatload of videos on YouTube that explain how to do it. But we'll use a pivot table. You might want to use a script. I'll talk about scripts again in a little bit. But I'll look at how many keywords are there per ad group. Because if I'm seeing ad groups, again, I always do this when I do an audit, looking at a new account. If I find ad groups with pretty much anything more than about 20 or 30 keywords, then I need to dig into those groups and find out what's happening there. Certainly, one I reviewed a couple of weeks ago had 600 plus keywords in one ad group. Well, then I know there's an easy win there. I know that by breaking that ad group into smaller ad groups of tightly themed keywords, and I write better ads, send those people to better landing pages, I know that I can make a big, big difference in the account in that area. And remove duplicates. You should have, from a search point of view, totally different for display, but from a search point of view, I believe, and there are slightly differing opinions on this, but I believe that each search query should only be able to match to one keyword in your account so that you then know what to manage. If one search query can match to 4 different keywords in 4 different campaigns, then one, that data is going to be spread all over the place. But now, what do you manage? How do you manage that? So I think that you shouldn't have duplicate keywords and remove the duplicates. Again, not on a you shouldn't need to do that on a daily or weekly basis. That's probably under the monthly or quarterly task list. Negative keywords. As you know, I'm a massive fan of negative keywords. One of the quickest, easiest ways to improve the performance of any account is adding more keywords. So you're looking at your search query report, adding more from those. And the other note I'll mention on this is think laterally. So if you've got a client that sells new cars and they don't sell used cars, sure, you can add used as a neg. But then you also think about, okay, well, what are other ways of describing used? So maybe it's second-hand, pre-owned, vintage, stuff like that. So think laterally whenever you add a neg, and if you're pretty sure that adding this new negative is not going to block a potentially profitable keyword, then throw that in as well. Quality, we talked a lot about quality in Module 5, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. I will look at the spread of how many keywords do I have with each quality. This is the chart that Optimizer creates. One of the easiest ways to view the quality score. Obviously, you can do this yourself in Excel as well if you really want. The reason I like Optimizer, which I'll talk about very briefly in the tools section, is that it tracks quality score over time. Now, in your AdWords account, in the interface, quality score is an attribute. It's not a metric that gets recorded over time. It's an attribute. It's what is right now. You can't tell what your quality score was a month ago or a year ago. I'm going to give you a script that will let you do that towards the end of this presentation, written by an awesome bloke called Jeff Mardiker, who some of you may know from Perry Marshall's Mastermind. He used to moderate that forum. He now helps me out as well and adds a lot of value to my private mastermind group as well. Awesome bloke, wrote a script and shared it for free in my mastermind area, which I'm going to give you for free, which is another way to track quality score over time. Optimizer is a great tool that does that. Don't know what Optimizer costs these days. I think they've bumped the price up a little bit. I think it's around about $250 a month. But if you're managing more than a couple of accounts, then it's a fantastic tool. Mention my name, and you'll get a 10% discount because they did a deal for us, which is very nice of them. Important to look at with quality score, not just the raw numbers. You'll notice on the chart on the left, it's keywords with impressions. Well, that's better than looking at all keywords, but what you really want to do when you calculate quality score, what Google do, is that they weight the quality score by the number of impressions. I probably should have a chart for this, a screenshot for this, but I don't. So maths in your head, try it on for size. If you had two keywords, one was a quality score of 4 and one was a quality score of 10, well then the average of those two is 7, right? 10 plus 4, 14 divided by 2 is 7. But that is just a straight average. That may not be a particularly useful way to calculate it. What if your quality score 4 keyword had 1 million impressions and your quality score 10 keyword only had 1 impression? Well, now it's pretty obvious that the average, the true average of that, the impression weighted average, is basically 4 point a tiny bit. That's what Optimizer calculates for you. That's the way Google look at quality score. And Jeff's script that he's written is a simplified version of all of the maths that goes into that, but it still does a very, very good job of approximating that quality score weighted by impressions. To fix quality score, well, we covered all that in Module 5, so go back and refer to the checklist in Module 5. If you've worked your way down the decision tree and you decided, yep, I need to increase quality and I need to increase landing page quality, go refer to the checklist in Module 5. Okay, ad copy. So increasing click-through rate. Are you testing ads often enough? If I log into a new account and I see, or if I log into something that we're managing, which would be very, very rare, and see something like this, then my head's going to explode. Because if we've been running 2 ads this long, and one of them is about 25% worse than the other, well then there is a very, very easy win. We kill that top ad, we write a new challenger, and we run a new test. So make sure that ads are being tested often enough. You probably don't need to rewrite ads every week. This is probably something to put on the monthly list of tasks. And again, big differences being the first thing that we test. Headline being the main thing. I can't tell you the number of accounts I log into, and they've got 3 versions and 3 different ads, but they've all got the same headline. So tiny little things are being tested. And there's a tiny difference in click-through rate and conversion rate. Test big differences first. And I mentioned pivot tables before. This is another pivot that will run. How many ads are there in every group? And what I'm looking for here are all the groups that only have 1 ad in, or I know I need to add a new ad in for the test. And how many ad groups have got more than 4 ads? So usually, most ad groups, you're going to want to see 2, maybe 4 ads in. If there's 2 ads, then they're probably going to be set to all devices. For the most part, there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, the 80-20 of this, 2 ads, so I'm getting a decent test. For bonus points, you might have 2 ads set to desktop and tablet, and 2 ads both set to mobile. So you're running a pair of ads that you're testing on desktop and a pair of ads you're testing on mobile. But there's very, very few instances where you need more than 4 ads. So running a quick pivot, finding all those ad groups with the 5, 6s, and even 12 ads per group, and then going and looking at, okay, this is, unless there's a ton of traffic flowing through this ad group, let's reduce the number of ads, which enables us to test faster and improve things quicker. Ad extensions. Talked about these a lot towards the end of Module 3 and all of the different types that you can use. So the quick check here is just to make sure what is being used. Can I add any more? Do I need to rewrite what I've got? So that might be your site links, might be your callouts. Look at the data, evaluate appropriately. Destination URLs. So again, under the dimensions report, this is yet another thing that's under that dimensions report. Use it often, have a play with it. It is your friend. Go play with all of the reports under here. One thing I haven't talked about is how to download reports. So while we're on this screen here, top line, settings, ads, keywords, etc. Move down to the second line, view, filter, columns. That little down arrow there, that's how you download reports. Once you've got the report on the screen as you want it, add all the columns that you need and so on, then hit that down arrow. Under there, you can either just download that CSV file or whatever. You can also schedule that report so that it sends you that keyword report or ad report or whatever it is that you might need, and you can have that sent to you weekly, monthly, whatever, and emailed to you. I don't have a shop for that, but if you want to download stuff and play with it in Excel, that might be useful for you. Destination URLs. What are the questions I'm asking myself here? How can I use them better? So I'm looking for those high converting pages, but with low impressions. So what's working well, but I'm not using it enough? Where can I change my ads, push my traffic to better, different landing pages in the account? And again, you're not going to do this every week, but this might be a monthly, maybe even a quarterly thing, depending on how much time you got available. But visiting those landing pages, to better understand where you're sending all of this traffic. Our internal ad writing tool actually shows the landing page on the same screen in the tool where you rewrite your ads. That's a tool that's available in my AdWords community forum as well. If you want that, then let me know. It's a great tool to find the winners and the losers, to find those pairs of ads that need to be rewritten, and then letting you do it on the screen while you can see the landing page. I find that really, really useful, rather than having to cut and paste destination URLs and open that up in a different tab and then flick backwards and forwards between the two. If it's your own site, obviously you should know those pages pretty well, and that'll be less useful. Google Shopping, well, we talked about that a little bit towards the end of Module 5. If it's an e-commerce account, then in terms of expansion, can I add this? It falls under the heading of adding other targeting options. Can I add shopping campaigns to my account? I'm looking at what's the CPA, how does it compare to my other campaigns. I'm just reviewing an account at the moment that has about 50 different shopping campaigns, so that's going to be an interesting one to audit. But so far, it actually looks pretty good, and the CPAs there are very decent. The 80/20 of management here is to adjust the bids of those product groups, and also improve the data feed. I mentioned a tool that we use called Data Feed Watch, where you can rewrite your titles and descriptions and use rules to do that. So you're not overwriting the data, you're not having to change the name of the product in the back end of the store, and you're not having to redo that every time you dump the data into a spreadsheet and rewriting them there, because then when you pull new data in and stick that over the top of it, you lose all those changes. So Data Feed Watch uses rules to change those titles and descriptions on the fly before you send that data into your Google Merchant Center account. Display, we covered in a lot of detail in Module 7. The first question I'm obviously asking myself is, what targeting methods are being used, and can I use more? There are many, many different ways that we can target our display campaigns. My favorite ones are the top 3. Oh, I haven't got display select in there. I need to add that in there as well. But remarketing, in-market, display select, which is kind of similar to the old contextual setup, but just sort of contextual on steroids is how we refer to it internally. It works generally much better than contextual. Contextual these days is quite broad. They use a number of targeting methods. It's not just the copy on the page, so it's a bit like the difference between, it's almost like the difference between phrase match keywords and broad match keywords. Display select matches less pages, but they convert better because they're better targeted. Contextual goes really broad and therefore tends not to work as well. Managed placements is okay, but don't assume that you know the best places to show your ads. Let the Google system discover more placements for you, and then there's a bunch of other ways that you can target. Once you're into a particular campaign or even a particular ad group, then to improve your display, you're going to start excluding placements. So it's the display equivalent kind of adding negative keywords. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say that because you're going to get confused with using negative keywords. You can use keywords in display campaigns. I just generally recommend that you don't. You want to exclude placements that haven't worked for you, placements where you're spending money that aren't converting. And I mentioned this one last week, but it bears repeating. AdSense for mobile apps.com. Please exclude that from every campaign that you do. That will save you a boatload of money. Also, as category exclusions that we covered last week, the sensitive topics, the in-game ads, and I mentioned that you can test excluding below the fold. One of the biggest problems I see with most display campaigns is they're not testing enough image ads. Just reviewing an account at the moment, 50 grand a month spend on display, a couple of $100 grand a month on search, and they have one ad for display, for all of their display, for all of their remarketing. One ad. It's in 6 different sizes, but it's the same ad. So people are seeing that over and over and over again, and from what I can tell, it hasn't changed in 3 months. So test lots of different image ads. Test lots of different ideas here. Is it the picture of the person versus the product versus the end result? Do we mention price or not? Is it an image or is it just text? If it is an image, is it black and white? Is it color? Is it the girl or is it the guy? Is it the couple? Is it the elderly couple standing there with the grandkids? What's the image of? What's the background? Where are they standing? Is it on the beach? Is it by the mountains? Is it in front of the house? Is it behind, in front of the shiny car? So many different things that you can test there, and it makes a huge difference to the performance of your ad. Again, from a display point of view, at the ad group level, which ones, and bidding is at the ad group level for display, which is why I've thrown this in here. It's not at the keyword level. So which ones do I need to remove or kill, and which ones do I need to reduce bids on? Almost there. YouTube. I'm loving YouTube these days, so I'm always checking, are YouTube campaigns being used, and if they are, what's the goal of that? Because there's really 2 goals for YouTube. One is just a straight branding exercise. I can, because you can't skip the first 5 seconds of an in-stream, if I get the brand in very strong at the beginning, then I can get a lot of people seeing my brand in a short space of time, virtually for free, because I'm not going to pay anything until they get to the 30-second point. I shared in Module 7 a presentation that I gave on stage towards the end of last year, where I walk through a whole bunch of how-to on YouTube and share a case study that we ran for a guy in Sydney here in Australia. The other goal being call to action, which is what that case study is on, of how we drove clicks off YouTube onto a landing page and got conversions cheaper than you should be able to buy a single click for on the search network. So fantastic. YouTube at the moment, having lots of fun with that. And it can be used in conjunction with remarketing. So I can build a remarketing list from all the people that watch my video on YouTube. I can also choose to only show my YouTube videos to people on my main remarketing list. So there's a number of ways that we can combine those 2 things. A couple of final notes as we get towards the end of Module 8 here. No tears, please, it's okay. Tools. 3 main tools that I think you can use, other than doing what I did and spending 100 grand and building a bunch of tools to use internally. I don't recommend going down that option. AdWords Editor, it is your friend. I know I've seen a couple of comments in the members area about AdWords Editor training and how needed that is. I am going to create some AdWords Editor training later on this year. I'm just going to take a little bit of a break from training for a little while. The AdWords Editor Help Center is superb. They've done a very, very good job of updating that, and there's some really, really good stuff in there, some good videos and some good training in there. So nothing beats just diving in and spending a good solid hour in one sitting with AdWords Editor. Just dive in, play with it. You can't break anything. You can't change your account until you hit the little post button at the top. Nothing in AdWords Editor actually gets sent back to your account. So you can change everything as much as you like. As long as you don't post it back into your account, then nothing is going to change. So just dive in, have a play. Optimizer, funny spelling, so write it down correctly, but Optimizer I've mentioned a few times. If you're spending more than, probably even just a couple of grand, certainly more than 5 grand a month, if you're managing more than half a dozen accounts, then I would highly recommend Optimizer. Fred and his team do a fantastic job of updating it. We've sent in a whole bunch of feature requests which they're adding to the product roadmap and they're rolling out. I recently did some training with Fred for members of my community over at ppcsavvy.com, which was awesome, and he gave us a little bit of a world exclusive actually of some of the new features of the tool that are just around the corner. I'm very, very optimistic about this tool and how much we'll be using it in the agency to do all sorts of stuff over the coming months. Fred was on the AdWords team from very, very early on. He worked at Google for 10 years. He was on the quality score team for some of that time. Their first tool that they built was the quality score tracker, and it's just grown from there. I cannot speak highly enough about that tool. It's excellent. And Excel. So we've talked about Excel or Google Docs and how well Excel plays with AdWords Editor to do stuff at bulk. I know Excel, and particularly pivot tables, scares a number of people. To teach pivot tables properly, yeah, I'll probably do some training on that at some point too later in the year. But again, there's loads of good stuff on YouTube of how to create pivot tables. Once you know how to do it, it's actually really easy, and you think, oh, why have I been avoiding that for the last 15 years? It's actually pretty easy. All right, scripts. So this, I think, is the future of AdWords, which is a fairly big, bold statement, but I think that we will all be using scripts a lot, certainly within 3 years, or we won't be doing this anymore. I think unless you know how to use scripts in the future, or unless you're using other people's scripts in the future, then you won't be managing AdWords account. Now, 3 years is a long time in dog years, but I think we're going to see a pretty big shift here even by the end of next year. So give it 18 months. Scripts will be used far, far, far more. There's more and more data coming down from Google. There's more data than we can deal with. It's available through the back end of AdWords, through the API, and using computers to analyze all of that data and make changes to the accounts based on that just makes an awful lot of sense to me. So I've gone to the extent of hiring a full-time developer here in the office in Melbourne, so not externally, not $5 an hour work over in Vietnam or something like that, but full-time here in the office. And Charlene's main job now for this year, at least 60% of the time, if not 80% of the time, is going to be writing AdWords scripts. So we're going to be creating a lot of these. We're going to be sharing a lot of them too, possibly selling some, but I'm sharing them in my members area. We're going to be doing a lot of these. The KPI is 1 a week, but hopefully we can do more than that. So I want to give you one, and I want to show you how to go put these in your account. What is this script? You go into bulk operations, bottom left of your account, and then look for scripts there, and just like it says, it's a piece of JavaScript code. It's basically a little program that runs inside your account. But instead of doing what I did 3 years ago and hiring a bunch of PHP developers to build an external tool that pull the data in from AdWords, so I then need to build the whole interface for that, and I have to build out this entire thing. I can now just have this little bit of code run inside of AdWords and do stuff inside of AdWords automatically. So you dive into scripts, you hit the big red Add New Script button, and you land on this page with a script unnamed and the first 3 lines written for you. So what I want you to do, and even if scripts scare the hell out of you, I would suggest you do this, because again, I think this is the future of Google, and the sooner you get over that, the better. Otherwise, you're going to be obsolete in 3 years. Just saying. So grab this URL. Go to this. I think it's a, did I put it in a Word doc? I was thinking I probably put it in a text file. So it's a text file in my Dropbox. Grab that, open that up. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to write down that URL. I will put this URL in the members area alongside this video in a little bit. But grab that. This is Jeff Mardica's code for the impression weighted quality score script. When you've got that, copy everything, Control A, Control C, and paste it inside the script window in AdWords. So this goes there instead of those 3 lines before you had before. Delete that, paste it in here. You should have 156 lines of code if you've done it right. Copy, paste, done. all you need to do is change Jeff's funky email address at the top here with your email address. You literally just delete that and type your email address in that variable email address equals. You don't even need code to do this. You just keep the double quotes at each end of that, obviously. Delete the bit in the middle, put your email address in there. You need to give the script a name. You need to click on that Authorize Now button just above email address. So that will then, if you're familiar with OAuth, you just get this little screen that pops up and says, basically, are you authorized to make changes to this AdWords account? Well, assuming that you don't have read-only access to your AdWords account, and you'd be fairly useless going through this course if you only had read-only access to an account. So I'm assuming you do have the ability to make changes to an account. So you're going to authorize, window pops up, you say yes, and now you're authorized to run this script inside your account. So this is an account level script. You can run scripts at an MCC level. If you're an agency and you know what an MCC is, you can run scripts there that run across all of the accounts in your MCC, but it's just a little bit more complicated to do that. You have to do them in batches of 50. There's a few other bits and pieces. For the rest of us, don't worry, just do this inside your account. So you're going to paste Jeff's script in here, you're going to give it a name, you're going to authorize it, you're just going to double check that you have 156 lines of code so you know that you've done it right, and then you hit the big red preview button. And when you do that, it just has a little look through the code, it makes sure that there's nothing wrong, and in this case, because the result of this script is to send you an email, it actually won't make any changes to the account. So when you run preview, it'll say no changes. That's fine, that's what you're expecting to see. And then, once you've saved that script, now you can set a schedule for that script. So at the top of the scripts page, you will see, whatever you call the script, I call it IWQS, Impression Weighted Quality Score. And then you can set this to run. Now, I very, very briefly mentioned auto rules a couple of times through this course. Auto rules can only run maximum daily. The beauty of scripts is that they can run hourly if needed. So you can make hourly changes automatically to your account. Now you don't want this thing to send you the email hourly. If you're obsessive about quality score, then you'll want this daily. Otherwise, weekly or monthly is probably fine. And the beauty of Jeff's script, the reason I love this so much, is that and I showed this in Module 5, it actually sends the little bar graph image directly into your email. So the script actually creates that image. You don't have to then drop these numbers into Excel and go create an Excel chart. The script does all of that automatically for you and sends that in the email, which I think is really, really cool. So where can you go to get more scripts if you do start getting addicted to this stuff? Free AdWords scripts by a guy called Russ Savage is a fantastic place to go. He shared a lot of scripts, particularly early on when they first came out. As I said, my training forum is ppcsavvy.com. Would love to see you there. If you want more of me over the future, if you've enjoyed these 8 weeks and you want more training, then that's where all of my training goes. I'm updating that on a monthly basis. We've got a huge forum in there. If you all of your questions answered, I'm in there every single day answering questions. It's ludicrously cheap for the amount of value that you get. You also get tools, scripts, a whole stack more. So if you want more of me, ppcsavvy.com is the place to go. And Google have a whole bunch of scripts as well that you can find, and we've got links to all of that in PPC Savvy as well. And that's it. We are done. It has been 8 weeks already. Thank you very much for your attention, for your excellent questions, for turning up every week and keeping me honest. If you're in the VIP group, obviously I will see you in the Team Action group calls. I believe the first one of those is in a couple of weeks. We've got a whole bunch of those over the next 3 months, so we'll enjoy those together. If you're not in VIP, then thank you very, very much for trusting us and for buying Bootcamp and for rocking up each week and playing along at home. Again, if you want more of me, ppcsavvy.com is the place where you can come and play with us. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I will see you around the traps. questions. Thank you for all of the lovely comments that are coming in. It's very lovely to hear. Thank you very much. Yes, it has been a bit full on, hasn't it? I know it's been. I know there's been a lot of information, and possibly too much at times. But my goal is always to over deliver and be as generous as I can possibly be with the information. So the Google Plus community, that continues. We will keep that up. I won't be as active there. I certainly won't be in there every day, which I have been so far, but I am in PPC Savvy all the time. Questions? Thank you guys for all of the nice comments that are coming in. Ken, I did mention that I would answer your question. How can I increase my profile if I never hit my daily budget or my maximum cost per click? Well, you'll never hit your maximum cost per click. You're just saying this is the maximum Google that I want to pay. You will always end up paying the actual cost per click will be less than that. If you're not hitting your daily budgets, or really without knowing your particular situation, have a look through that decision tree. Hopefully that decision tree will help. If not, ask me a question on the Google Plus forum that's sort of a bit more specific to your particular situation. Okay. Cam, will I provide a complete list of resources? Yeah, well, they're all in the Google Plus community. If one kind member wants to collate all of that and put all of the shortcodes in one place, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? If anyone wants to put their hand up for that, that'd be lovely. But they are all in there somewhere. Review extensions, yes, they are particularly thorny. Get some help from your Google rep for that. Or don't call the help number on Google if you're trying to get help from Google on this. Little tip for you: when you log into your AdWords account, look for the help link top right and do the live chat option. We've found that the quality of person is generally better on live chat than the guys you get on the phone. So there's a tip. Thank you, John. Thank you, guys, for everybody that's throwing in the comments. One-on-one consulting. Yes, John, I do one-on-one consulting. I do one-on-one training as well. There's a couple of options there, but by far the best deal is if you're a member of ppcsavvy.com. So members get half price training. So it's going to cost you a fair bit. I'm shamelessly expensive. Is that the word? Shamelessly expensive. If you head over to my main website, websavvy.com.au, and book time with me there, then that's going to cost you $1,000 an hour. PPC Savvy members get it for, it starts at half price and gets a bit cheaper if you buy blocks of time, which a couple of people through this course have already done, and thank you to those guys. So yes, I do one-on-one consulting. I do one-on-one training. If you really want to fly me to wherever you are in the world, you can do that. That'll be expensive. People sometimes come here to the office in Melbourne, or we can do that over Skype and do that just as a one-on-one, or with your team. I do that with small teams as well, where we meet over GoToWebinar, just like this, but it's tailored to you, to your business. Again, a much better deal if you're a PPC Savvy member, but you can also go to my other main site, my agency site, websavvy.com.au, and book time with me there. Mind maps, William. I use MindNode. I'm on a Mac, and I love MindNode. That's the pretty one that I've been using all the way through. I also use iThoughts on the iPad. I've just found that's a better one to get my ideas down quickly on an iPad. And on a PC, Xmind. There's a very good free version of Xmind. All of those are good. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for all of the lovely comments. Thank you, Andrea. Everybody else. Can we do PPC Savvy in the States? Oh, of course you can, Greg. Yeah. That's open worldwide. We've got members from all over the planet in PPC Savvy. Again, yeah, loads of stuff in there. The forum, there's a very active Q&A. Like I said, we've got really smart dudes like Jeff Mardica and a whole stack of other people in there. People that are running big agencies. We've got one-man bands. We've got people that are in-house, people that are just starting, people that are AdWords experts. And it's a little bit more than just AdWords. I put training in there on Google Analytics, on Google Tag Manager. Like I said, we've got AdWords Editor and Shopping coming. And we add new training every month. The community decides what that new training is going to be. So there's a vote every month. from a short list of things of what you think the next lot of training needs to be. And yeah, scripts. I'm going to add a lot of scripts as well as our existing tools, some of which are in there. Not all of the dashboard, I'll be totally clear. All of the dashboard stuff I showed right at the beginning of this module, not all of that is in there, but I'm basically turning all of that into a script at the moment that will either be sold to the general public and most likely given to BBC Savvy members. What are the benefits of a monthly plan at a payment plan other than discounted one-on-ones? I'm not sure I understand that question, Liam. Oh, I see. So one of the benefits for everything I've talked about. You get me in there all the time answering questions one-on-one. You get the Q&A, other members helping you. You get the tools. You get all of the training, all of the stage presentations, all the podcasts that I do. So sort of a lot of my latest thinking. I've done a bit of stuff recently on exponentials and stuff sort of a little bit sort of towards the edge of AdWords. Everything I do is in there. Thank you guys. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody else. Are we going to do an advanced training on remarketing? Well, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of advanced stuff on remarketing in PPC Savvy, Andrea. I recently did a 2-hour webinar just on analytics remarketing, and I shared a ton of gold in there. Stuff that as far as I know, only me and one other agency, to date at least, worldwide have been doing some really, really funky stuff. I pretty much gave the farm away. I've been told off for doing this since, because apparently I gave too much away. But there's a whole boatload of stuff. We've even got some Facebook remarketing in there as well. Greg, Bing, not a lot of Bing training in there, or no Bing training in there as far as I know. But yes, we do sometimes export campaigns over to Bing. Basically get it running the way you want it running in AdWords. Bing will bend over backwards to help you then import that in. They'll give you a rep, they'll walk you through that. It's very, very simple to take an existing AdWords account and chuck it into Bing. Ultimately, you should manage that separately, but it wouldn't be the end of the world if you picked up wherever your AdWords account is up to at the end of each month and just overwrote everything in Bing and threw in a new version. It depends. Results really depends on a few things. Obviously, it makes a huge difference which country you're in. Bing is a much, much bigger part of search in the States than it is here in Australia. It's tiny here. It's insignificant here. If your market skews older, then Bing is probably going to work even better. Traffic's obviously a lot less, but CPAs are often better. And if your market skews older, then that can improve from there. But yeah, well worth experimenting with, certainly if you're in the States. I think it's sort of, roughly speaking, you're going to get about 1/3 of the volume from Bing that you get from your AdWords account in the States, whereas here in Australia, you're lucky if you get a 20th. I mean, we had a client spending 30 grand a month, and we couldn't spend $1,000 a month on Bing here in Australia, so we don't use it a whole lot. All right, well, thank you, all of you that are heading over to ppcsavvy.com right now. That's very nice of you. I look forward to seeing you there. I think that's all of the questions. Ken, if I haven't answered your question properly, please put a note in the Google Plus community and I will get to it there. Just give me a little bit more information. I'll do my best to answer it as much as I can. You're very welcome, sir. All right, I think that's all of the questions done. Thank you all very, very much. It's been a wonderful 8 weeks. I look forward to seeing you around the traps. Bye for now.